Hello and welcome to the first of two artist receptions for our upcoming Stories We Tell show. I'm Jennifer Steck. I'm a member of the leadership team for Artburst and your host tonight. Tonight, we're thrilled to have with us Blanche Guernsey, Erin McAllister, Jen Renzel, Jennifer Wilson, Russell Miyaki, Michele Messinger, Robin Whatley, Allison Clements, Behnaz Ahmadian, and Tony Thielen. The rest of our artists will be joining us next week. And I'm lucky enough to have a fellow leadership team member, Jennifer Yazwa, with me. And Rebecca Berman is behind the curtains handling production manager duties. So Jennifer, the artists have spent months preparing and creating fabulous collections that we can't wait to reveal when the show opens.
We have an incredible lineup for the Stories We Tell show, and we're so excited about it. Tonight, you'll meet half of the artists and see some of their work. And then on February 15th, you'll meet part two. So if you come to both of the receptions, you'll get to meet all of the artists and see some of their work. We are excited to be welcoming return art lovers and those brand new to Artburst.
Well, and if you're new to the Artburst shows, there's a few things we want you to know up front. First, it's really easy to participate. When the show opens, just head to the website, find the art you love, place it in your cart, check out, and the artist will ship it to you directly, and you'll be able to make connection with that artist. Pricing is set, so there's no bidding, so you can get right in, purchase the piece that you love, and get about your business. And then you don't need to worry about traffic or weather. What we love about these online virtual art shows is that you can attend from your own home in the most comfortable pajamas that you have, and including your bunny slippers if you want. Now, you can send us pictures. We always love a good picture. So here's a few things you can do after the artist reception tonight to better be prepared for show day. First up, sign up for a free account if you don't have one already. Subscribers and those with an account will receive a 24-hour advance preview of the show page so that you can go through all the art, read all the details, start making your priority list, and plan your strategy for show day. If you want even earlier access, sign up for our Collector Plus program to receive a full color printable catalog a week before the show.
It's pretty exciting when the doors open and art lovers from around the world come rushing in. To make sure it's fun, exciting for you and not exciting, overwhelming, we're going to give you some tips. The first tip is to log in before the show starts, so you don't have to search for your passcode or remember what your login is. Just log in before the show, and then at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, go ahead and refresh your browser. Once you're in, you can find sorting features. So you can look for an art by price, you can look for art by your favorite artist, you can look for the title of a piece, and so on. So that'll make it a little bit easier for your shopping experience, especially if you're in a hurry. Once you've added the first piece to your cart, we highly recommend that you check out right away. If you leave it in your cart and you continue to shop or you go take a break, there is an opportunity for someone else to kind of steal it out from under you if they put it in their cart and go directly to checkout. So we highly recommend that.
And then the artists will be in kind of.
Oh, yeah. I know. This is the part I didn't actually know was my line until just a couple minutes ago. But when the show is over, the artists will be in contact with you for shipping.
Let's go ahead and meet some of the artists. Jennifer's going to head back behind the curtains with Rebecca to assist in the chat. Feel free to drop your questions and comments into the chat. The artists will be available to respond to those comments once they finish their interview segment. For those of you watching us on Facebook, feel free to add your comments and questions in the discussion section, and we'll be headed that way to answer questions after the artist reception is over. But thank you for joining us. So welcome, Blanche.
Hello.
I am so excited to have you here. So this is Blanche Guernsey, and Blanche does, well, you can see what Blanche does because her wall behind her is covered with her magnificent art. So Blanche, what do you love to paint, and why do you love to paint those things?
I love nostalgia. Nostalgia is my thing. all of my objects are things from my childhood or my children's childhood or, remembering my grandma's house, objects that I'm just constantly taking photos and images. And yeah, I love the nostalgia and connecting the generations with those nostalgic objects.
So do you own those nostalgic pieces and set up your still lifes with those in them? How does that process work?
Yeah, most of the things that I paint, I do own. Like the Legos are really fun because I get to say that I can expense my new Lego minifigures. I love that so much. But um, some of the cameras, like the camera collection that I did over 50 cameras. And I don't own all of those cameras, but I have friends and family that have huge collections. So yes, I bring them into my home and I do take my own images and I do work from life sometimes as well as work from the photographs.
When did your fascination with that and combining that interest with your art begin?
I'm gonna say years ago when my oldest son was heading off to college, I think that's when things turned because I actually started doing with portraits and pastel and I moved into oils and moving into oils moved me into more like the Legos and the cameras and the old books and it just kind of evolved from there. So that was in 2015.
You have a particular piece that you want to show us and talk about?
I was going to show you this camera in particular. And this is not one of my cameras that I own, but this is my sister-in-law's. And I just think it's really fun and cool. And
All of your pieces are framed, right? And ready
they
to.
are. They
So
are.
when
They have the black floater frame, all of them do. So there's a little space in between the actual canvas and but I love that float look.
yes, I do too. Well, and you also paint old books.
I do. And actually, some of these old books are from my grandpa's garage. They're not books that I would actually read because they're like automobile books that he had in his garage or like medicine type books. But I love the tattered edges and the worn look and the greasy spots. And I just love all of it so much.
Yes, well, and just so everybody knows, when the show opens and you go, let's say that you're going to one of Blanche's paintings, when you hover over the picture, it's going to magnify. So you're going to be able to see all those tattered edges. And it's just stunning the detail that you've been able to capture in them.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
So you've added some origami cranes to some of the pieces. Tell us about your origami crane project.
Yes, the cranes, I love the cranes so much. They'll show up in my artwork here and there randomly in different spots. The cranes came from my boys as they were growing up. Their little fidget was folding the paper cranes and they would fold them in restaurants and at the school and at their friend's house. And I found them all over the stairs and all over the living room. And I have boxes and boxes of them because I just couldn't get rid of them and I saved them. And I just love them so much. And they still to this day fold the cranes wherever they go. And so you'll see it in my artwork a lot because it just has this spot in my heart.
I think what I especially love about your work is it just brings back, for me, memories, a lot of
Yes.
memories. These days we're moving more into the technology, which is awesome. I mean, we couldn't all be here tonight, right? If it weren't for the amazing technology that's available. But there's something about those old worn books and those notes that people put in the books and everything that we're going to be missing in the future, I think.
Yeah. Well, the technology had to take steps too. I mean, the typewriter is now the keyboard that we use every day so yeah, it's so fun.
It is fun. Well, is there anything else that you would like art lovers to know about you and your work?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just so grateful to be part of the show. Thank you for having me.
We are just delighted you're here. And I mean, just the sampling of work behind you, again, the Scrabble boards, the typewriters, there's something about clicking on a typewriter that's so tactile and so fun. And so thank you for spending time with us tonight, Blanche.
Thank you so much.
All right. And now we have Erin. How are you, Erin?
Hi, how is everyone?
So this is Erin McAllister, and Erin happens to live in Denver, which is actually where where I live and where the leadership team, for the most part, lives in the general vicinity. And we were really excited when Erin agreed to join us for the show. Erin's work is very unique. And what I love about it, Erin, is that you work in such a variety of mediums. Can you talk about the mediums that are part of your amazing artwork?
Yes, thank you. So there is a common thread between, no pun intended, between my work.
Well,
I primarily started in fibers, all fiber, all fabric. I have some pieces behind me that are 100% fabric. And what I would do with those is kind of using like quilt processes and techniques with using iron-on adhesive, so and to kind of create an applique style. And what would happen, so I've been doing that sort of process since 2005, I want to say, and it's continued to morph and change, but it's always been this collecting and creating something that from pieces that didn't exist before. So kind of tend to do like a lot of rebirth. So I'll take a piece, and then when you cut it out, there's the piece around it. And those used to just float around. But really what's happened with these pieces for this show and my more recent collections have been integrating some of the left out parts. So what was in the foreground and then the parts that were cut away are now being highlighted, and parts that would have normally just been discarded. I wrote some things down while I was making this work so I could understand what I was doing, because my work tends to be just really intuitive and just kind of process and making and quick decisions. And the one thing I like that I wrote is believing in the possibilities of value in the discarded and beginning fresh when the time is right. What's interesting is some of these pieces that I have a good memory of where they come from. Most of my new work is on paper with thread, but there are still some fabric pieces in them from past pieces. So it's kind of like a bringing on like an older artwork cut off piece is now into a new piece, which will then maybe be in another piece at some other point.
Oh, I love that. Carrie, it continues the story, and I'm sure you can remember where it originated from and, kind of what the emotions were as you were creating those pieces in the past. So how do you approach a new piece of work?
Yeah, so a lot of different ways. I have a very messy workspace. I think it's kind of fun to kind of enjoying. Someone told me recently that it's almost like organizing the chaos. It's really just very intuitive, and gathering materials, putting them together, maybe coloring. One thing that I have is like a bin of some of these little cut off pieces. So this like at one point belonged to something else. And, maybe some normal people would just throw them away, but instead I see something really beautiful in these shapes. And in the past, I've done a lot of these as fabric, but what's been cool about these new pieces is that this is all painted. So these are all painting. I did a large painting, and then I went through and kind of cut out pieces. So when I find these interesting shapes that really kind of intuitively, like what happens if you put something here? And then there's really not like an up or down, like what if we flip it this way? And then what if I add something here? And it's kind of about just the flow of what looks and feels good in the moment of finding just kind of like a balance in the space.
Yes. Well, your work has such beautiful color and movement in it, and we are so delighted that you're here. And thank you so much, Erin. We can't wait to show your whole collection.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be part of the show. And it's really cool. This new collection is brand new for me, and it's a little bit of a different path. And I'm excited to highlight it with everyone here.
Oh, that sounds great. Okay,
yes, thank you.
So hi, Jen.
Hey.
So this is Jen Renzel. And Jen has joined us actually for our inaugural show, which was a year ago. For some reason, it doesn't seem that long, does it?
No.
So how has life changed in the last year for you?
Oh, you mean artistically or personally?
Well, I I mean, you can go either way.
Put it
I'm
this
not
way.
sure how much
I-
personal stuff you want to share here.
I appreciate art so much more because it's my happy place, and I've been dealing with issues with aging parents and stuff. So it's just been a godsend for me to. I'm retired from my day job, so working on art, it just really saves me. It grounds me.
Well, and had a busy year.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've got kind of a lot of stuff going on, different shows, and kind of been booming a little bit on Etsy, and got a big show coming up that's going to be fun that I'm doing with my brother. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, so your brother's an artist?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I don't know if you can see that wacky green cat behind me on the closet. That's one of his pieces.
Well, that's so fun that you guys share that
Yeah,
that passion together.
it is fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that's different from the last show to this show is you've also incorporated some 3D pieces. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, for me, that's actually kind of coming full circle because I actually started off mostly doing sculpture, assemblage, found object art. I did that for years. And I always wanted to be a painter, but I was afraid. So I started kind of playing with paint in the backgrounds and on the boxes and, just kind of sneaking up on it. At some point, I kind of made the leap. And then I spent the next 5, 6, 7 years painting. And now I'm kind of at a place where I can combine both of those things pretty well. So I feel like I can do sculptural stuff and do painting and put it all together. And it's like the best of all worlds for me.
Oh, it is. And so a lot of your pieces focus on the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, I decided since it was stories we tell, somebody earlier was talking about nostalgia. I just love old stories from my childhood and those books and even that movie just, I find super charming. So I thought, well, I'll do some of my pieces will be stories that other people tell and some of them will be stories that I tell. So I kind of mixed it up a bit.
I love that. Well, and it's funny because I do watch The Wizard of Oz. Probably
Great movie.
And have for more years than I care to tell everybody here.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It stands up.
It really does stand up.
Yeah.
And so what's your favorite part about working in your illustrative style?
Wow. I like this idea of world building. So I love the idea of, creating interesting characters and then putting them in really kind of crazy, interesting settings. I like to put them on planets or in imaginary worlds or just something that's kind of completely crazy. And I enjoy, it's almost like writing a short story or something. It's like in my mind, it's like creating a little world with characters and when I lose time doing that, that's when I know I'm really happy because I'm just like in that little world, putting it together, piecing stuff, trying stuff out.
Yes. So do you have a piece that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we were supposed to show pieces from the show or not, but
Absolutely.
okay, so this is one of the Wizard of Oz pieces, but I bet nobody will know it because this little creature here wasn't in the movie, it was in the books. It's called a woozy. So it's an actual, Frank Baum character. It's this weird little block-headed animal. And then the other ones are just characters that I added that I would like to add to the Oz set. But yeah, so that's that. And then I've got a little Wizard of Oz kind of thing going where I kind of did my own version of the Tin Man and his little buddy. So those are
I like that, like a shadow box almost.
Yeah, it's kind of thick. It's like a frame on top of a box with the characters in it. And I kind of, and you can see the yellow brick road back there and all that. So I had fun with it.
Yeah, well, it looks like that. It shows it's filled with so much joy. So thank you, Jen, for joining.
Sure.
So this is Jennifer Wilson, and Jennifer is one of our encaustic artists. So Jennifer, can you tell us, for those who aren't familiar with encaustics, what that medium is?
It is beeswax and a resin called Damar resin. It comes from a tree sap. And the Damar resin hardens the beeswax. And so you mix the two together and then you can add in pigments and you work hot to cold as opposed to wet to dry. And you fuse each layer with a torch. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I remember you telling me how much you liked working with the torch.
Yep.
So how did you approach this show, taking the theme Stories We Tell in mind?
I went two ways. So part of the paintings are relatively personal. They're from my childhood. They're about my mother or my father. And then some of the other ones are more about the gardening that I do and the ocean that I love. So it's kind of a combination. And some of them are collages, particularly the ones that have to do with my childhood or my parents. And then the ones that have to do more with my gardening and the ocean, and that are more three-dimensional abstract type. So it's kind of a combination of those two.
Well, and you've embedded some objects in some of your work.
Yeah, I love doing that. It gives it a real three-dimensional feeling. You know, AI may be coming, but it can't do three-dimensional yet. So in a number of them, I have old buttons that were in my mom's button box. And I have bus tokens, vintage bus tokens. And then I also have embedded some plants. So there's one of the paintings is about my mother's love of Lunaria, which is also called money plant. And I grow that in my backyard. And so the seed pods I use, actually, I can show you. So these are the seed pods right here. And so I embed those into the encaustic. So I've also used paper, both handmade paper and prints that I've made and then torn apart, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
So can we see that piece again up close and personal? Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit more about it?
So this is called Bittersweet Memories. And what it's about is my mother's love. She was not a gardener per se, but she loved bittersweet and she loved Lunaria. And so in our apartment in my childhood, she would go around the neighborhood and she would cut the Lunaria and the bittersweet from the wooded areas in our neighborhood and bring it home and put it in vases and stuff like that. And when we moved out here, she collected some of the seed of the Lunaria and replanted it here. And then the Lunaria that I have in my backyard comes from those plants. So it's basically plant after plant back from my childhood.
Oh my gosh, there's so much history. It had to have brought back so many amazing memories when you were working on things.
It did. I mean, I thought a lot about what I wanted to say in each piece and what memories I wanted to share. And so, yeah, some of them are bittersweet. Some of them are fun. Some of them are just, there's at least one that will make me cry if I talk about it. So I'm not going to talk about it. But I also wanted to create pieces that had lots of color, lots of interesting shapes and that to them, so that it wasn't just for me, but it would speak to a broader audience.
Well, I think art lovers are going to be really touched by a number of your pieces, and we're so delighted that you're joining us again. So
I'm happy to be here.
How are you, Russell?
Hello. Very good.
So tell me what you've been up to since your last show with us a year ago.
Ooh, wow. Well, there's been lots of shows, a lot of great shows, a lot of community work where the work that I do, I've been donating proceeds to animal shelters, and also we've been doing a lot of interesting direct to community work. So like the studios, which I'm not currently in the studio in Bridgeport, but the Bridgeport studios that I'm in Connecticut, we do a lot of community work. So it's everything from murals to workshops for local artists to a current really compelling exhibition that's going on that was curated through all of the different types of artists throughout Connecticut. So it's been a really busy year, but a lot of fun.
Yes, I've been following along. So I think you just did one of the fundraising things last week.
Actually, it's this weekend.
Oh, it's this weekend. So bravo. Well, and we've talked about this before, we're kind of kindred spirits here. Your work for this particular show, it's magnificent as always. Some of the pieces incorporate people in them, which I haven't seen before. So tell me how that developed.
Interesting enough, first of all, the show theme is incredibly fulfilling, because as storytelling being a vital part of what artists do, it enables us to tell those emotional, empathetic stories and connections that we have in life. One of the, of course, huge things that I love to express is that hidden silent bond that humans have with their animals, specifically, of course, dogs. And that's why all of a sudden, when I looked at the theme, I thought that here's a way to expand on this story, as opposed to, like, a lot of the work that I have been doing most of love is the featured aspect of the abstract of the portrait of the dog. Where now with the story theme, I kind of pulled back and expanded on the story and showed the connection between the human and the companion. And so there's so many different stories that you can tell that happen between humans and animals, specifically dogs, that I just started going off of that, because that sort of opened up a new dimension to the work. And also, of course, it gives others a chance to sort of relate to that moment that they see that may have happened between them and their dog.
Well, it did for me, I can tell you. So I can see some pieces in the background, but do you have a piece that you would like to show us?
Sure. Let me just put this one in focus. The backstory on this piece was that I came across an image captured by a photographer by the name of Marco Pikic, and he had this image that brought back so many emotional memories of when I used to live in an urban neighborhood that was filled with all of these dogs, right? And I immediately saw a story that I wanted to express. So what I did is I reached out to Marco and I said, look, I love this piece that you did, and it reminds me of a moment. And he loved the idea of me doing an expression of what he came up with. And so the story of what this is here is it's an abstract depiction of that profound bond between the dog and its owner, but it's captured in the car, because we know that, well, there's so many reasons dogs stick their heads out of the cars, but the central focus of this piece is on the dog radiating this happiness because he's with his owner. I wanted to capture that unspoken love that is shared between the owner. And so I kind of added some filtration of light and added more enhanced abstract colors to the dog to draw attention to it, just kind of muting down the background so that the dog stands out. Because it's one of those things that I wanted to show the emotive state of the dog and its happiness. So this is an example, of where I started going with these different stories between humans and their companions and their dogs. And I found there's so many different stories that are out there to share.
Yes, there are. It's fabulous. I love every piece, and we are so thrilled that you've joined us once again for the show. And I think people are going to fall in love with every piece because we see our animals and just the emotion that you express in those. So thank you for joining us, Russell.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we have Michele Messinger. So how are you, Michele?
I am terrific. I'm happy to be here tonight.
Oh, we're thrilled that you're here. Well, now Michele is one of our other encaustic artists. We are just finding how much we absolutely love the encaustics and how much art lovers love them as well. And so, Michele, how did your journey with encaustics begin?
I went to an art show in Golden, and I went into this woman's booth, and she let me touch her artwork, which is, mostly not approved of. And I was just intrigued immediately, and we bonded. And her name is Victoria Eubanks, and almost everybody from the Denver community knows who she is. She said, I think you need to take a class, and I think we're going to be friends. And I did, and we are. And that's what started me and encaustic.
So your work is very graphic in design. How do your pieces begin?
I already think in shape and color and hierarchy anyway. So that's how I that's how I approach what I'm doing. I may change it up as I go through a piece, but I start with an idea. I play with that idea. I might cut a stencil for that or whatever. And that's how it begins. And then, voodoo takes over.
I think a lot of us artists can relate to that.
Yes, I think all of us can.
Understand that, somebody speaking through us. So one of the things that I think I just discovered maybe about acoustics is that with the layers, in many cases, there includes a layer of maybe paper or something on the bottom that has some shapes on it already, and then you build on that.
Yeah, yes.
Right?
Yes, like Jennifer Wilson was talking, we start with encaustic medium, which is wax and resin melted together, and that is sort of opaque. If you don't put any pigment in it, then you can kind of see through it, and then you can control how much you can see through by the number of layers or the thinness of the pigment you put in it. I just so happen to have a little cake of pigment right here. So like you would have a tube of paint. Mm-hmm. This is pigment and wax hard until I start melting it. So this is just like your tube of paint. So yes, I can control the see-through aspect of that wax.
Yes. And how do you choose your colors?
Colors that I absolutely love. In fact, you haven't asked yet, but I'm going to tell you that the through line of my story for Stories We Tell, my through line is color. This color. This is a color that I love. This is the color that I would marry if I could. So all of my pieces have this color in it, either a little bit or a whole lot, or mixed with another color or very translucent, but they all have this color, which is called olive yellow. And I just love this color. So that's my story for Stories We Tell. They all have my color that I love.
Oh, and I love that color too. And it's just pops.
It pops in. I can dull it. I can brighten it. I can glaze it. I can do so many different things with it, like many colors, but this one seems even more receptive, probably because it knows it's my true love.
Well, I love all your color combinations. And
Thank you.
most encaustics, I love kind of the depth and the textures on every piece. And the fact that when you find a piece that you love, you can actually touch it and really appreciate it. Yeah, so all of your pieces are on cradled wood panels, correct? So,
yes.
Mm-hmm. So they're all ready to hang. So art
yes.
lovers, if you have the perfect spot that would benefit from
olive yellow.
Olive yellow. I was going to say olive green, and I knew that wasn't right. Michelle's work is just stunning. And, I was at a festival with her many years ago, and I had a hard time staying in my tent because I always wanted to go over to her tent and look at how.
Well, who doesn't? I mean, beeswax, it's so wonderful.
It is. Well, we're so thrilled to have you back, Michele, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Robin Whatley. I love these artist receptions. I just learned so much about the art and the artists. I always leave the receptions all inspired and wanting to go back into my studio and paint. So thank all of you artists for being here and for sharing your work with us. Now, Robin, you have really focused on collage. And what I find interesting when I'm hearing all of the stories from the artists tonight is about how much history in many cases and nostalgia and memories and have built into their work. So can you talk about that and how it plays into your collage and your work?
Absolutely. So for me, I've always been fascinated and intrigued with the vintage, the retro, the old. And one of the things that as history for me as a background artist in painting, I encountered these really beautiful old vintage magazines from a bookstore that was going out of business many years ago. And I had no idea that I was going to be a collage artist necessarily when I found this bookstore and I saw these gorgeous old 50s and 60s magazines. And so I bought them right up, and I didn't know necessarily yet where they would land into my life or how they would be incorporated. And my entire collection of all of the magazines that I have acquired. I love bringing in the story of pop art magazine with advertisements and the idea behind what maybe these ads were, which was a time period that I wasn't perhaps alive or therefore, and also was. And then taking that and creating a new concept or story that could be surreal or subconscious or funny, any of those things. And that's what I love to take, because I find that advertising in and of itself can have an essence of humor to me.
How did you approach the Stories We Tell show?
So for me, I loved this concept of Stories We Tell. I felt like it was so indicative of the work that I do already, in that, you know, I'm taking these characters, I'm seeing it almost as a vignette or a theatrical show, and bringing them into landscape, color, light, and introducing them and the viewer into a plot, a story that they can then take and interpret how they want, or they can take the interpretation that I might see in view. But I love when there's multiple interpretations of this plot or story that, again, can be funny, absurd, wonderful, heartfelt, resonating with memory. And so that's what I took into this theme of Stories We Tell. And I took it to this another level of shadow box. Yeah. And so with that, I kind of played with this concept of three-dimensionality, which I hadn't yet, I had done a prototype, but I hadn't yet like fully had an opportunity to explore. And so this was really a wonderful opportunity for me to take it into a true theatrical setting, in a sense, is where I took it.
Oh, I love that description. So can you show us one of your pieces?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of my personal faves, and it wasn't intentional that I wore this like emerald green, but it kind of works, I guess.
Oh, it does work. It does work.
Yeah. So, okay. So to give you a sense of scale, so I was working, and also, I mean, all of these magazines are from the original, I'm taking from the actual magazine cutout advertisement. They're like little tiny little printouts. And that's a lot about my work too, is that I like using the original image. I like not just the tactile analog of that, but it's just the one-off. And I think we live in a world of so many reproductions. And so to have something that is its own thing, and then taking it and adding so many other pieces and multiple layers and so forth. So this one right here is called Welcome to the Jungle. And the story, if you will, if you can see this, that I see happening, is that I had found these like old, it's a mirror of it. I found these like little old flight attendants, and this over here is the plane was something separate that I wanted to place somehow, but I also love the idea of placing them in an absolutely absurd setting, considering the fact that they are dressed in the 60s attire. They're there presenting themselves for the magazine, but they're placed in a setting that they've got these giant, oversized, succulent, big, right, like jungle world that they couldn't possibly probably know what to do, or they're not fully prepared.
Yes.
Hard to say. That's the only piece of the story that we know from it, this little snapshot. And are they dropped off? Are they trying to catch the plane? I mean, that's part of it that is.
I love that. Now, your pieces can be hung on the wall or sit on a shelf, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So you can hang them flatly against the wall. There's hardware and everything. And then they've been all wrapped. Each piece has its own like outside handmade paper wrap that I was thinking about how it connects, but it's also not entirely about the piece. It's more like an idea of connecting you into the story. So
Yes.
you might see it from the outside and wonder, well, that's a beautiful box. What's happening? And then here's this.
Well, Robin, thank you so much for joining us for this show. We are just delighted you are here, and we love seeing your work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now we have Allison Clements. How are you, Allison?
Good. How are you?
Good. Oh, I can see some of your paintings in the background.
Yes, I tried to set up the camera.
So is that your studio?
Yes, this is my studio. It's in my house, above my garage. Yes.
Oh, how nice is that? I love it's got a lot of really great light there.
Yes, some very good light.
So I want to talk about your bold color schemes and how your ideas develop.
For the show, for the stories we tell, I relate color to memories and my feelings. So for my pieces in this show, for some of them, instead of like actual story as like for instance, my coffee talk pieces, more about places where you tell stories. For me, getting coffee with a friend, it's always an intimate setting, and it just more the feelings you get from the colors. But that's how I connect my stories, is with color. And so, I mean, but I do love colors. So the bright colors, I mean, that's always been me, is the bright colors.
Well, and I adore the unusual color combinations. You're so good about those pops of color. And while they're against other colors, your eye knows where to go. I mean, they just move you around in kind of a dance of, I mean, they're just incredible. So they're very unique and they're very graphic. So talk about your style just a little bit.
When I was in college, I was introduced to an artist, Hans Hofmann, and I was fascinated with his use of color and his push and pull of color. That sort of pushed me in one direction. But I've also always loved, pop art, and the hard edges. Has also influenced me, Georgia O'Keeffe and her organic shapes. So all those things I think I take and put into my pieces. I mean, I think that's where my style comes from. It's just all different art influences that I've, grown up with.
Yes. So do you have a piece that you can share with us?
This is one of my, this is just a little 8x8. This one is one of my Goosebumps paintings. I paint all my edges solid black, and then I sign the edge. So they're ready to hang, you don't need to frame them. So my Goosebumps, so there are 3 of these in the show. And I have 3 kids, teenagers, 16, 18, and almost 20. My kids and the things that they do, I'm so in awe of them, and they give me goosebumps all the time. And so that is what these 3 are about. It might be, memories that I have of them. My girls are dancers. When I watch them dance, I get goosebumps. So that's sort of where these 3 little paintings came from.
I love those. And then you have some large pieces as well for people looking for work for other spaces.
Yeah, behind me, I have, it's all different sizes. I think, but the biggest one is, I don't know off the top of my head, but I think it's like 3 feet by 4 feet. So yes.
Yeah, well, they are lovely. And this is your first time joining us.
Yes, I'm very excited.
Oh, we are just thrilled to have you. It's really been a joy through the whole journey. I don't know that people realize that to create a collection like this for a show takes months and months and months. And so we've all been working together for I don't know, 4 months, 5 months, sometimes 6 months, just in order to put together a collection for all of you art lovers. You're going to have your jaws dropped. You're going to have goosebumps. You're going to have all of those things once you see the amazing work. So, Allison, we are thrilled that you're joining us for this show, and we look forward to everybody seeing your whole collection.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be a part of it and excited to be with so many amazing artists. So I'm excited to see everything too.
And now we're joined by Behnaz Ahmadian. And gosh, Behnaz and I met, I don't know how many years ago it was, Behnaz, probably 5 or 6 years ago. From the first moment I saw your work, I was in awe of all of the details and everything else. So you were in our inaugural show as well. So that was a year ago. So in the last year, how has your work changed? How has the year gone? What's new in your world?
Yes, first of all, thank you. I'm so happy to be part of the show again, and I appreciate and honored for you to let me in. So thank you for you guys, everything you do. It's a great show. Yes, we've met a long time. It feels a long time ago, especially the pandemic kind of makes it feel like it was many, many years ago. But I'm really honored to know you, and thanks again for the opportunity. So I started as an acrylic painter, and I'm still an acrylic painter. But what I've kind of grown into is doing more paper collage. And it comes back from all my memories from my mother was a fashion designer. And so I was always incorporated with she was always working with fabrics and drawings. And at that time, I had no idea it would lead me to where I am now. And it pretty much is the theme, the story we tell. It's pretty much all of what you are, how you grow up, and how it shows through your painting. So pretty much every painting is what you've been brought up with in your experiences and your culture. And I'm originally from Iran, and my paintings all have patterns and lots of color, lots of color. I can't get enough. But what I've been doing since the last show is doing more paper collage. I started out with fabric collage. My very, very first painting many, many years ago was fabric. But I felt like I can do more with paper. I can create more texture. So what I do is pretty much, I paint on paper. I paint with paper, I should say. So what I do is I take magazine paper or any other kind of paper and paint and create texture, which I could not get with fabric. And so what I've been kind of growing into, I'm very inspired by nature. I love nature and all the things you can learn from nature, just stopping and staring. We don't do that anymore. I feel like if we're just passing by, and especially in Colorado, you do a lot of hiking and the views. So I'm doing more hiking now, especially since my son is much older and he can come with us, and just the beauty. And so I'm doing more nature scenes now and more landscape, I should say, and doing that with the collage. So it's been really, really fun and incorporating all those colors and textures.
I love the fact that you're incorporating the landscapes in. And how do you decide what you want to be in those landscapes?
Honestly, my paintings are more intuitive. It kind of comes through me. I do some sketches. If I take pictures and incorporate those. Like for instance, this one, it's called Enchanting Vistas. And so this is not a scene from Colorado, but it's the hills and the houses are just so fun to incorporate in a painting. I think it feels nostalgic. It feels kind of homey. And so, I don't know, if it comes through, it comes. It's more intuitive. I don't really plan my paintings.
Can you hold that up a little closer? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And there's a lot of texture, so many layers. And what I do, I build up. I have 3 or 4 layers. And so when you look up close, and it's funny, when I do shows, kids love to come and touch them. And parents like, no, don't touch it. But I tell them, no, please do touch it, because it's just, when I build up layers, you can see it and feel it. It's so inspiring. Nature is just wonderful.
It is. It is. Now, were you going to show us another piece?
I'm also known as the pear lady. I mean, I can't get away without doing pears. So I have about, I think, 2 pears in this show. But I started out with pears when I started doing acrylic paintings. And so pears are wonderful. I love things that have form and shape. And everything in my world has to have pattern and color. I mean, I can't be simple. So my pears have lots of pattern and color, and they represent humans. So it's kind of the story between the 2 pears and how they communicate. This one's called Remember Me. I mean, I would like the viewer to come up with the story, and the name really means a lot to me. I don't pick it out of the blue, and it really means something. So I like the viewer to come up with a story. Why is this called Remember Me? But they're just communicating. In my world, they're alive.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us again in this show. We are just delighted to have you back and excited for everybody to see your collection. So thank you. Behnaz.
Thank you for having me.
And so welcome, Tony.
Thanks for making me follow all these amazing artists and their stories.
Well, we consider you one of the amazing artists with your story too. So Tony Thielen is from New Mexico. So Tony, tell us a little bit more about you and your work.
So my work really is a mix, a combination of pretty much everything I do and think about. I'm always all over the place. I grew up all over the world. I've lived in multiple countries and multiple states, and went to school in several other states. And, I've just lived this crazy life, and I've met so many different people and different cultures that it kind of, when I decided to go full-time into art, I learned traditionally, but I got really bored quickly with just kind of looking at a model and painting them in oil paint. And so I purposely, when I finished school, was pushed away from that. And I just started experimenting and playing with everything. And I actually hated acrylics when I first used them because I wasn't used to them, but I kind of was forced to use them at some point during the pandemic because they were the only thing I could really travel with. I was in the process of moving, and I ended up learning to love them for different ways, but I still use oils, I still use acrylics, and I just incorporate everything now. So I do some collage in pieces, I do embedding in pieces of 3-dimensional objects. I use acrylics, I use gouache, I use colored pencils, I use oil pastels, whatever it is that's going to help me tell that particular story. But I think it kind of represents, my pieces in general represent the kind of lifestyle I've lived in that experience. So when I approach them, I don't normally approach my pieces with a story in mind. I usually have a theme I'm working on, like lately it's the Western, Southwestern cowgirls and things like that. But I'm also starting to try to incorporate more landscapes in, because being back in my hometown or home state of New Mexico, I've been inspired by a lot of the art, a lot of the surroundings. And I think for this show, I've really pushed to do some landscapes. And I actually failed at quite a few before I finished a couple, because it's not something I do every day. I'm more of a figurative and portrait person. But I did get some pieces out, and they really were pieces that were designed like my memories as a child, or as I'm walking my dogs through, through the paths over here and in the open space, and what those views mean to me. But I always, I think and other people may not know, I try to balance a line between representation. I always want the representation aspect, but I want to push some abstract, and I want to push expressionism in it too. So when you see my work, sometimes it might be more abstract, sometimes it might be looser and more expressive, and sometimes it might end up being a little tighter in the representation here, because I don't sit there and try to decide what's what. I allow the piece to actually come alive on its own. I see what's working or not. So as I like to say, it's the conversation I have with the pieces I'm going.
I love that. Now, one of the things that fascinates me about your portraits is some of them have the most beautiful and intense gazes, and some of them, the eyes are hidden a bit. And what is it about that wide divide between the two, those really intense eyes And then the portraits that you have where the eyes are suggested, those still have so much emotion to them, even though we're not looking directly into the eyes.
Well, one philosophy, I don't know, maybe I picked it up off a teacher or some other instructor in a workshop, but it was always said, like, if you're going to paint a portrait, eyes are the souls. To we as human beings look directly at the eyes first, because that's what we're accustomed to. And so you better make the eyes look really well and like they can contact with somebody, and then the rest of it doesn't have to be as well. Doesn't have to make that connection. They're like, okay, I see you, you see me, and that's how the eyes go. But I try to do the story with those in the sense that if the painting's looser, I don't like to get overly detailed with the eyes, and part because then it just wouldn't fit in. So likewise, I'm just trying to make them work with each other, but I'm always just kind of picking what I think looks cool. Does that look good?
It does. It does look cool. It's unexpected, but it still tells such a powerful story. And that's kind of the way I learned too. It's the eyes, you're going to focus into the eyes. And so when I saw your work, it was like, wow, it isn't all about the eyes. I mean, it's kind of an aha moment for me that I absolutely loved. So thank you for challenging that for me.
It's like my latest themes, the cowgirls have no eyes. They're all in shadow,
Yes. So do you have a piece that you want to share with us?
Yeah, I can share. I think I'm going to have to turn off my background because that's not that's my studio, but it's just a background image to be able to show you.
Beautiful. Look at that. You even have the logo.
Yeah, I wanted to represent.
You needed to decide my background too, so.
So
although I have beautiful work behind me as well. Oh, now I can see some of your work behind you. So,
but anyways, I brought a couple of pieces, and I think they are a great example of the things I was just talking about. For this one, I've already posted, but this one probably represents something where almost every type of medium is in here, from spray paint to collage work over here. This is gouache, the red. Our skin tones are gouache, but then there's colored pencil in there. We have acrylic paints. We've used stencils, patterning, and this whole scarf. I'm going backwards, but that's all like collage materials from magazines. I think the one thing I don't have in here is oil pastels. But then I also, if you see this a little shiny on her ear, there is a stud in it.
Oh, yeah.
Or the dimensional piece. This is what it was, a work on paper that I mounted to a 1/4-inch board so they can be framed.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love your colors as well.
It's color, it's pattern, it's composition, texture. It's like, what does that piece want? I mean, I try to do it. So sometimes my pieces don't look like they're made by the same artist, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So here's like one where you talk about eyes and stuff, very detailed in skin tones. And this is all acrylic. And I could take it out. It's on paper. It's watercolor paper, but you can see I've added a lot of texture around it to contrast the detail in the face and how rendered that is.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, I can't wait for everybody to see the whole collection, because even the landscapes, they have sometimes similar marks as what you have and that bold color in there is unbelievable. I just love the sky.
Went through a couple sky colors with that, but I ultimately liked the reflection, the balance between the top and bottom using the similar colors. And then of course you have purples and blues and yellows together. And you have transparencies of transparent colors of like pink and stuff underneath that I allow to kind of sneak through into parts.
Oh my goodness. Well, Tony, thank you so much for being part of our show.
I appreciate you having me. So.
Yeah, it was wonderful. So we're excited for everybody to see your work. So we've had the opportunity tonight to talk to a number of the brilliant artists we have joining us for the Stories We Tell show. But you know what? This is only half. This is only half. We have another artist reception planned a week from tonight. You're not going to miss that one either, because the artists in that one are just as amazing as the artists that you've met tonight. So we always love bringing them to you. Part of what we do with Artburst is we want you to be able to connect with the artists and to hear their stories and to learn more about them so that you can take a look at their work and sense who they are and what their work is about. So we're always delighted to bring them to you just so that you can meet them a little bit better. They're very special and very creative people. Let's talk a little bit about what comes next. So we've enjoyed meeting all of the artists. And in 2 weeks, so 2 weeks from today, the Stories We Tell show will open on the Artburst Studios website at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. But in the middle of that, a week from tonight, we'll have the artist reception part 2 with a number of our fellow artists again. We have recorded this, so you'll be able to watch it over again and to invite all of the art lovers you know, and send them the link so that they can meet the artists too and be ready for the show. So again, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to create your account in advance so that you'll be ready when the curtains open. And we look forward to showing you over 240 pieces of original art from all of these amazing artists when the Stories We Tell show opens online on February 22nd at 10 a.m. So it's artburststudios.com, and we'll see you next week at the next artist reception. So thank you for joining us. Have a good night.